Good afternoon, everybody. It's Wednesday. It is 1 o'clock, and this is Chattin with CHAP, and I'm your host, Ginger Wade. I'm so glad you tuned in with us today. It's a scorcher. My children are out rollerblading on the hot pavement. So they're getting all kinds of fun exercise. It's good. It's good. Those last waning days of summer where you're like, okay, I don't think it'll be too bad to sit inside and do some school. Because it's so hot. Or those last few days to get in the pool. Very enjoyable. And this week, it is Fair Week where I live. So people are out and about at the fair. And it is a hot one to be at the fair. Let me tell you. Fried foods and weather like this. Ugh. I don't know. But some people love it. They just love it. And bless you if your body loves it in this heat. So enjoy Fair Week. Okay, so today's topic is truancy and homeschooling. I've had some folks contact me recently, and I've seen in different places people concerned about being truant while homeschooling. And it kind of surprised me because I have never heard of this concern before in all the years I've been homeschooling, which this year is my 15th year. So I have never heard this concern before. So we'll tackle it today. Let's talk about truancy and homeschooling. So just so you know what the word truant means, what does truant mean? It means a compulsory age child, which in the state of Pennsylvania is 6 through 18 at this point, with 3 or more unexcused absences. Now that doesn't mean consecutive days. It could just be 3 random days that are unexcused. So and once you have more than 3, or once you have 3, you are truant. Habitual truancy is 6 or more unexcused absences. So that's not in a row again. It's just whenever. If you have 6 days that are unexcused in school, you are considered habitually truant. So truancy is a thing that you have to have in a public school situation where your child has to go somewhere to learn. Okay, you got to make sure they're there. You got to make sure they show up. You got to make sure the parents make them get there. So they created this thing, truancy, to keep track of everybody. And then they could say, hey, your kid hasn't been in school, or maybe the parent doesn't know, maybe the parent does know. But truancy is something that exists for the sake of attendance at a public school. So guess what, homeschoolers? Your kid is in school every day. They're with their teacher every day. Well, a lot of days, right? Sometimes they might go to grandma's or somewhere else. But for the most part, your student's with you. So truancy does not apply. It doesn't exist in homeschool. There is no such thing as truancy in homeschool. There was a mom I know was concerned that she filed her affidavit and then started to do school, but then they took a trip or took some days off. Would that be truancy? Well, it doesn't apply. It's not a thing in homeschool. So in the law, it states that we need to have 180 days of instruction. 180 days must occur per the school year. It doesn't say that it has to be consecutive days. It doesn't say that it has to be that you can't miss so many days in your 180 days. It doesn't say anything like that. The school year runs from July 1 to June 30. And guess how many days are from July 1 to June 30? 365. There's 365 days for you to get your 180 days in. Do you think that's going to happen? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there's just not an issue of truancy in homeschooling. Besides the fact, kids learn everywhere all the time. They're learning all the time. They learn every day. There's rarely a day, there could be days, but I think there's rarely a day where they're not learning something. So honestly, in homeschool, your child is going to get more than 180 days of instruction, but as per the law, this is what the law states. And it doesn't give instruction as to how you handle your days. Like it has to be consecutive, you can't take a break, blah, blah, blah. You get to set your own schedule. Yay! Isn't that great? So it could be 6 weeks on, 1 week off. It could be, you could follow the public school schedule if you wanted to. You don't have to. You can set it up however you want it to be. So if you file an affidavit to homeschool, truancy laws do not apply to you, meaning that you may take a week, a month off if you like, because you are in charge, supervisor. Freedom. So learning happens while you're studying academics, okay? So that's what we think of. We think of academics and sitting in a chair, and this is when we're learning, and this is our 180 days. But guess what? It happens during field trips. It happens when your kids are volunteering for something. It happens when you're going through life experiences. So learning is not just academics. Keep that in mind. There are so many forms of learning that you have to do to be a functioning adult, right? It's not just something that comes from a book. So say you have a life emergency that happens. It could be to you or someone in the family or an extended family member, but everything else stops because you have to deal with this family emergency. Guess what? Your children are going to learn so much from how you handle that situation, from watching what your family does to rally around and deal with this issue. They're going to learn how to manage schedules. They're going to learn how to serve others. They're going to learn how to take care of people. They're going to learn how to make phone calls to doctors or phone calls to family members for help or to pastors or whatever. They're going to learn so much about what to do in an emergency situation or in a health crisis situation or some other kind of situation. And no one wants those life circumstances to happen. No one wishes that, but they do happen. And those are all learning experiences. Kids learn from all that stuff. We all need to learn how to function when life gets crazy. So those are as much instructional days. Like I remember one day when we were first moved into this house, there was a flood and we had 4 inches of water in our basement. And there we are, and like everyone's bailing. The boys are bailing. They're picking up their stuff off the floor. All their Hess trucks were beeping because they all short-circuited in the water, right? So that's learning how to take care of your house. Guess what happened, And then you talk with a neighbor and the neighbor has supplies and they help. So you're learning how to work together with other people and support each other. So those are all really important things. So those types of lessons are as valuable, possibly even more valuable sometimes than your academics. Okay, they teach you how to function. Anything in the house, chores, laundry, dishes, bathrooms. I mean, the whole thing, how to manage your schedule. Older kids, man, they should be managing their own schedule. They should be keeping track of what they're doing. They could be, buying their own clothes if they've got a job or you're giving them an allowance to manage that so that they can buy their own clothes and manage whatever it is that they need to buy. It's important to give them those opportunities, and those are all, for the most part, outside of textbook learning situations. So your learning is happening every day. So mama, don't fret over truancy. It doesn't apply in homeschool. Your kids are learning all the time. And honestly, kids who go to school could be learning all the time too. But truancy exists because they got to go there. Your kids are with you. They're there all the time. So if you're listening and you haven't personally made that choice to homeschool, you're thinking about it, you haven't handed in the affidavit, well, guess what? If your school district has started their school year, you got to put your kid in school if they're compulsory age. If they're less than 6, you don't. But if your child was in school before and the school year has started, your child is of compulsory age, you have to have them in there if you have not filed an affidavit. The moment you file that affidavit, though, truancy doesn't apply. Okay? So if you haven't filed the affidavit, yes, your child needs to be in school or they're considered truant. Once you file the affidavit, from that moment, your child cannot be truant. Now, CHAP and HSLDA do suggest, it's not in the law, I will state it is not in the law. They do suggest that you file a withdrawal form with your affidavit if your child was registered for public school before, simply because, and here's why, the people who deal with public school registrations and withdrawals are not necessarily the same people who deal with the homeschooling affidavits. So if they're not talking, the people over here might go, this kid hasn't been in school for 3 days. They're truant. And they could call you and be like, hey, your kid's truant. When over here you're like, well, I filed an affidavit to homeschool 4 days ago. It's fine. So the law does not require a withdrawal form. But we do suggest that you hand one in if your kids have been in school, just for that simple fact, because the offices don't necessarily talk to each other. And it's going to save you some grief in dealing with all the questions and phone calls and stuff. Maybe not. It might not. They still might call you and be like, where's your kid? Because the paperwork got lost. I don't know. Keep copies of everything. But I just want you to know, if you're going to homeschool, once that affidavit is in there, truancy is not an issue any longer. So I know a lot of times people talk about how restrictive Pennsylvania is to homeschool, and compared to the other states in the union, yeah, we're right up there. We do have more paperwork and stuff to file than others. Honestly, the paperwork isn't that hard, so don't let that scare you. But you do need to realize that even though we're a little bit harder than other states to homeschool in, homeschoolers have way more freedom than public school students, parents, and that we just do. We have so much more freedom. Enjoy your freedom. Don't worry about things like truancy once you file your affidavit. I mean, we have the freedom to choose when we're going to homeschool, to choose where we're going to homeschool, to choose who's going to help us do the homeschool, or if it's just going to be us, to choose what we're going to homeschool them, what we're going to teach them, to choose how we're going to do it, and to choose why we're going to do it. It's all yours. That freedom is huge, and it's awesome. So enjoy it. These are not options that you have when you go to a public school or even a charter school or a private school. Curriculums are chosen for you there. This time schedule is chosen for you there. The location is chosen for you there. Who's going to teach it to you is chosen for you there. Homeschool is the only education option that gives you the freedom to make all those choices. So for you freedom-loving Americans out there, woo, choose homeschool. Tell other people about the freedom that's in homeschool. It's amazing. Even in Pennsylvania, where there's a little more paperwork to do than other states, it is still the most free educational option in the state. So that occurred to me the other day, and I wanted to share that with you. So enjoy your freedom. If you filed your affidavit, truancy no longer applies. Do not fear about truancy. You are good to go. Enjoy your school year, whatever that looks like, and just enjoy it. And don't fret, mamas. You're good to go. But thanks for asking the questions. I'm glad that was brought to my attention so I could talk to you about it and hopefully allay your fears. Okay, I hope the beginning of your school year has been super great, and I look forward to meeting with you again next week. I'm trying to think. Well, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to talk on next week. I'm thinking maybe freedom, but it could be how to start a co-op. So we'll see what comes up next week. But we'll see you later, and have a great week. Bye.